Hi guys, so I think we can start, yeah, as others join. Thank you so much for joining. For those who have joined, Florence, Lauren, Marceline, I'm Nancy Wambura, and I'm going to be the moderator for this webinar. The webinar is titled The Future of Learning Webinar. How modern education is evolving through technology, flexible curricula, and student-centered learning. We're going to go through all these features, and our panelists, who we are going to meet shortly, are going to tackle one by one each section. So thank you so much. We'd like to start with a word of prayer. So I think we can pray. Lord, we thank you for this webinar. Thank you for helping us to meet today. Even as the rest come in, we ask that you may be with us. Help us to have a fruitful session. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Yeah. So I can see Liz. As we go along, you're welcome to share your comments, your questions on the chat. And at the end of the session, our panelists are going to discuss them, answer them. So yeah, just feel free to give us your feedback and also share your questions. So I'll start with the introduction. So about this webinar, the future of learning is evolving rapidly, and this webinar by Oaks Excellence Academy explores how education is being transformed through technology, flexible curricula, and student-centered approaches. It offers practical insights for parents and educators on how to better prepare children for a fast-changing and what modern learning should look like in practice. So that is basically what the Future of Learning webinar is about. On our panel, our speakers today are Enoch Mohol and Violet Mohol. Obviously, it is Mr. and Mrs. Mohol, and they are both quite experienced with education. And for Enoch Mohol, he is a teacher and the founder of Oaks Excellence Academy. And Violet Mohol is an educator and PhD candidate at University of Illinois. And yeah, they're going to speak to us, and I'm just going to read a brief profile about them. Enoch Mohol and Violet Mohol are seasoned Kenyan educators with over 3 decades of experience in shaping modern learning. As one of the pioneers of Christian education in Kenya, they have played a significant role in advancing flexible, student-centered education models that empower both learners and parents. Through their work with Oaks Excellence Academy, they have helped build a structured and supportive school ecosystem that serves families across the country, offering online and offline personalized learning pathways and mentorship-driven education. They are widely recognized for their expertise in homeschooling, curriculum flexibility, and preparing learners for a rapidly evolving world. Their approach blends academic excellence with character development, making them trusted voices in the future of learning in Kenya. So I'd like them to just say hi to the audience. Yeah. Mr. and Mrs. Mohol, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. And hi, everyone. Like she has said, my name is Violet. I welcome each one of you, and it will be good just interacting together with you today. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Nancy, for having us in this webinar. We look forward to a great time together with the other participants. My name is Enoch Mohol.
Thank you. For the next session, it's going to be a discussion, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen and just ask the speakers particular questions about the topic today, and then they're going to give us their feedback. So here's what we are going to start with: future of learning. And I have a question for Mr. Mohol, Mrs. Mohol. What does future of learning mean in today's world?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a loaded question, but I'll try my best to be able just to break it down. When we look at the future of learning, what we mean is where is the outcome of what we teach our children going to be? And when we look at it that way, then we come back to thinking of it, how then will we prepare children to be able to get that outcome that we are looking at for the future? And that's why we are calling it the future of learning. And one of the things that is critical is that as we go ahead, you realize that education is now narrowing down to the student, so that now the student is becoming the focus of learning, rather than what we have previously known as the traditional learning, where the teacher is at the front, everyone is looking at them, they're giving assignments, they're giving homework, they're telling you what to do, they're even giving you notes. Now that has shifted, and now that passive learning has shifted so that the student is no longer a passive learner. The student has now become an active learner, where the future is such that it is the student that is actually working with the teacher to create knowledge. They are not passive learners. They are people who are actively also participating in the learning process and bringing in their ideas in the learning process. So that's how the future of learning would look like. It's going to be student-centered. It is student-centered, not that it's going to be. The other thing about the future of learning is that technology is not something we are going to leave out when we think about the future of learning. One, because generally everyone, including the children we are raising, are tech savvy already. And so you want to use the tool of technology as a learning tool. You want to include it among the things that the student knows. This one is a learning tool. I can use it for research. I can use it to do my homework, because these days you can look for uh, places where you can get information without having necessarily to depend on the teacher alone. So technology is one other thing that is going to be very central. And even as we move into AI, I think it is just going to blow our minds. But generally, technology is very central when we look at the future of learning. The future of learning is also very focused on creating a holistic person, that is making the child not just develop academically. When I went to school, maybe let me mention, we were so busy learning things academically to pass exams. That was the focus at that time. Everyone wanted us to focus on exams, so we had those extended days to study. We had extra tutoring to do. We had homework that we needed to finish up. The focus was build the mind, build the academic part. And indeed, they succeeded in doing that in many courses. But a person is made up of more than just that. You need to grow a person. Just as we worked so hard in developing people academically, we need to work just as hard to give them the right social skills they need for life, and so develop them socially. We need to create a person who is emotionally intelligent. They can be able to cope with whatever situation they find themselves in, because life brings with it many, many situations. And so be emotionally stable, ready, and equipped enough. And again, that is a training. That's something that school should be doing. That's something that the learning process should be enabling the student to grow in. And of course, we can't miss out the moral part. We should grow our children in character, because it's character that forms the person and gives them the ability to be able to move forward in what they need to do. Without character, it causes you to slacken or to be limited, because you can't gather yourself to have what you need in order to act. So character is a very important thing, and therefore another competency that you need is character. But for us at Oaks Excellence Academy, and also just as Christians, the greatest for us is the spiritual competence. We believe that everyone needs to be able to know God and to develop that aspect of them just as strongly as they also develop their academic work. So you see, you are developing a holistic person. And to me, maybe in a nutshell, that's what I would look at as part of the future of learning.
Thank you. I think that's quite clear. The next question is, why is individualized learning becoming more important?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I like that. I love your questions, by the way, because they are our heartbeat. Individualized, just coming from the word individual, meaning that I'm focusing on the individual first. Until you develop someone and they become their best, they are very limited in giving anything. So the development of the person is so critical so that when I'm well developed, then I can be able to share out easily. So when we talk about individualized learning, we are narrowing down to the person, the student, and we want to, we first of all respect the fact that this student has all they need. By the way, when the Bible says they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that is it. They come so complete, created by God to be something. They come with their uniqueness, they come with their personality, they come with their ability, they come with so much in them. So, what individualized learning does is that you work alongside the child as a teacher, as a parent, in order to bring out that potential that is within them. And so what do? You use different methods that are available for you in order to make the learning process be such that the student is bringing out their very best in the way they are, not in the way the teacher is assuming they should be. So it therefore means that you know your students well and you're catering to their needs and you're reaching them where they are. So what do? You create your lessons and everything that you're doing around the child in such a way that the very best of what this child can do is what is coming out. Their potential is then realized. So that's what individualized learning is supposed to do. The uniqueness of the person is appreciated and accepted, and through the learning process, that person is being used to bring out their best. And that's how I would put it.
Yeah, coming from an 844 background, I think it's quite revolutionary to hear some of these modern day perspectives on education. Thank you for that.
Maybe
What skill?
I could add something,
Yeah,
Nancy.
yeah.
I think we may not realize it, but it's not actually even like I would say it's a new thing. I mean, from the initial stages, that's how education started. But I think with the introduction of what we call the grade school, the focus tended to now be more on a group as opposed to an individual. So we started talking about putting children in groups of like, this is grade. So we look at this grade, and then we adopted something like a mass production, like the factory line production. So we channel them through the process to get them out. Now, at the end of that process, now the focus becomes more of we have achieved our task, we have moved them. Nobody bothers about how each individual has come out of the process. And like in our case, you see, we have had this, which I think is still there, where we celebrate performance of the top performing person. So you see when the results are announced, and we are carrying one student who has gotten A, and there's jubilation and there's a lot of joy, trust Kenyans, and the dust settles. Nobody ever goes back to ask, what is the rest of the class? As we are celebrating this one student, what about the others? How are they feeling in the process? Nobody thinks about that. And when you talk about individualized learning, you now change your focus completely. So it's not about pitching one against other and saying this is number one, number two out of 40, but we want to make sure everyone comes out whole. Everyone comes out with their purpose intact. Everyone comes out successful. So even that one who probably is not number one is still successful in their own right, and we ought to celebrate them that way. That is the major shift that we need down to be offered. And that's really what is going to happen. That people are going to be more focused on that, so that we celebrate that individual success and we are not putting it or pitting it against another one's success. It is your success that we are able to then measure and say, yes, you are successful, and we celebrate.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Muhol, for chiming in. I think it has added a lot of meat to the discussion. So the next question was, what skills will the children need that traditional schools may not emphasize?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like we have mentioned, the traditional school focuses so much on me and how I'll pass the exam, and me and how I'm complying to what the teacher is telling me. So if today I was going to learn this topic and this is how much the teacher gave me, that's what they're expecting me to know, and off we go. Now, learning in today's world has changed, or should change, if we are still maybe looking at the traditional way of doing things as what is good, in the way that the world is now requiring for our child to be one that can solve problems, for example, because they are looking to this person as, when they go into the job market, are they able to fit in and be a part of a team that can take initiative and that can build on things and work with a team. So we are taking initiative, we are collaborating with others so that we are able to solve a problem or gather more information on something that probably that workplace is requiring. Remember, when I'm in school, I'm only being sharpened for where I'm going to go. So one of the greatest things that a student-centered program or an individualized program does is that you focus more on helping the student to learn to be the person that, one, can also work with other people and can take initiative, be a strong risk taker, let me say that. And I say that because many of us don't like taking initiative and taking risks, because most of the time the teacher was the one who told us what to do. And anytime, if you notice, sometimes even now in our lives, many times if you want to solve a problem, you quickly run to another person first. You don't gather yourself and think, let me think about it. Let me break it down and see what I should have done. Then when you bring in others, it's because they are complementing or supplementing what you already have thought about. So what is developing in you is the ability to know, I can take the risk. And even if I fail, it's okay. People fail, that's how they succeed. You can't succeed without having to have failed first. So taking initiative, working with others, that is collaboration skills, being able to be someone who is able to solve problems, being able to be someone who can think. You can critically think. You can ask questions without fear. And another big thing that I'm starting to encourage ourselves in is being independent. I think, coming from myself, you guys went through 844. We did a different system of education, but all of it is traditional. When you go through the system of education that we've gone through, you become so passive as a person that all you do is to learn to soak in. In fact, we are told that a child is empty, and therefore the teacher comes to fill in. It's like they are an empty vessel that is getting filled, or they are a sponge waiting to soak in. Yet within a child, there is already a lot of information because they are living the world, they can see things. So they are not as empty as we are thinking. They have a lot. We just need to give them an opportunity. So, growing a child to know that they have the ability to think on their own is a very critical thing. They can think independently. They can be able to express what they are thinking without fearing that I'm saying the wrong thing. We were made to believe that when you're a good child, you keep quiet, even when you have something to say. Or when you speak out and express yourself, you look like the problematic child. You look like, you talk too much. Or you shouldn't be saying that. It looks like we should always just be quiet. But skills that are needed are skills of having the confidence to say what you're thinking, because you don't have the fear of failure, but also you don't have the fear of saying what you have, so that you can receive from others what their opinion is. So if everyone learns to speak what they can and also to respect what others are saying, even when someone says something different from what you had, it doesn't create in you a reason to want to be defensive or wonder why did they say that. No, you just know, oh, people can express themselves freely, say their opinions, and then we can all brainstorm over this matter. That's how learning is. That's how learning should be. That's how a classroom should be, where people are thinking, where everyone is contributing, and, everyone has something to say, and we will all grow in the knowledge that we are doing. So very critical things, and maybe just to list them out. We are developing critical skills. We are developing problem-solving skills. We are developing a person who can research, just being able to find out much more. I think one of the things I felt like I lost a lot as I was going through school is just to go and find out much more about the things I am doing. I relied more on the notes I was given and the textbook that I have, and that was it. But being able to explore, and that's why we need the technology, because the computer gives us an opportunity to go find out more about a topic, about what someone else is saying, about the things that we are learning. And so research is an important skill that needs to be taught and learned by people, so that when you speak, you're speaking from a place of, I found out this, and I think this is how I'm thinking about what I read and found out, not what media or just anyone is saying. And like I've said, independence is important, self-expression is important, collaboration is important, being risk takers, being able to dare is very important, and taking initiative is critical. So those are some of the things that I would say are critical, that we can have, that a traditional classroom may not provide for us, just because of how it is set up, and that it's only that it is teacher directed. It's only the teacher who is thinking and doing things, and the student remains passive all throughout. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think confidence is one of the most important traits to gain from childhood. And I think you've explained it really well, that how individualized education helps students to gain this confidence. So I'd like to, at this juncture, just remind the audience that you're free to share your comments or questions, and then we'll look at them at the end of the webinar. The next session will be for Mr. Mohol about Christian-centered education. So the first question, how do Christian values shape a child's mindset and discipline?
Wow, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I would say that there are two schools of thought, or there are two what you can call approaches that you can have to education. One is humanistic, and the other one is theistic, where God is at the center. Now, why I say that is because it's very important to know the difference. Now, when you approach education from theistic part, or from God being the center, then what then informs a lot of things are those values that are in the Bible, those values that are time tested, those values that are eternal. And those values are not just to be taught at school. They are supposed to be taught at school, they're supposed to be taught at home. There's a scripture in Proverbs that talks about a three-stranded cord is not easily broken. And so when we approach education from a biblical worldview, we are saying that we apply the biblical principles, and then those biblical principles are integrated into the very body of what you can call academics. So there's a merging, there's an integration. There are very many principles, there are very many values we can talk about. Let's talk about the value of love. All right? Well, that's as a principle. It's one of those things that we need to know. And the Bible talks about loving God with all of our heart, with all of our mind, with all of our soul, with all of our strength. Now, when you look at Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 5 and verse 6 and verse 7 and verse 8, Moses is reminding the children of Israel of that very, very essence. In fact, it is called the Shema. in terms of evil. And what basically it was, the words are supposed to be reminded every day, all right, that you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Then the next thing is that you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, when you look at that as a principle, when you are bringing that into education, we then remember that even as we study, God is interested in our studies. God is interested in my education. God is interested in my very well-being, which education is supposed to be. Now, when you marry those two, a child is able to see then, even from what I'm learning, is it then consistent with what the Bible teaches? That's now the next level. So you want to also now go to the next level where you're going to say, is what I'm learning consistent with what the Bible teaches? I usually give the example to people, which is a common example, perhaps even our participants know about it. Somebody will ask you a question, which one came first? Is it the chicken or the egg? And that's a question that sometimes you can open it up for debate and you can easily have a 50-50 divide on that discussion. Because there are people who will say, no, you can't have an egg without a chicken. True. And others will rightfully say, but you can't also not have a chicken without an egg. Also true. So then how do you deal with that question? All right. So if I'm teaching science, for instance, how do I help a child understand the principle? Because now we are talking about marrying biblical values, biblical principles, biblical truth now with what we are learning. So the explanation that you will find useful is you go back now to the origin. You go back to creation. You go back to Genesis. What did God create? God created the bird. Then God empowered the bird to be able to reproduce after his own kind. So he gave the bird the ability to lay eggs so that it can be able to lay eggs and other more birds can then be produced from that process. So that settles the debate. Now you're able to say, because of that, I'm able now to say that the chicken came first. And then after that, the chicken was able to give the egg. You see? So that is how you then marry those truths and you integrate that with the word of God. And there are many other examples that we can go into. But you cannot separate biblical truth, biblical principles, biblical values from education. If you want to be able to do education the biblical way. But if you're going the human way, which obviously then is not in accordance with God's word, then people have challenged a lot of things, and we know we may not even go there right now. Yeah, it's a very, very wild world. Yeah.
Yeah, so for people who may feel like Christianity offers like a bubble and doesn't prepare children for life. So the next question is about that. Can faith-based education still prepare children for life?
100%, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think I don't see how it may not do it. I don't see maybe how it can make you not be prepared for life. Look at societies globally. Look at the issues societies are grappling with. It's not about education. Okay, in an extent they talk about education, but what is ultimately it comes to just what value system informs how we behave, how we relate with each other, right? So every time you're talking about society, people are going back to the very fundamental issue of values. And what are the right values that can help us have a very lovely society? Now, when you look at that, in my view, then you see that God's plan is the best plan for us. God has a perfect plan for how we can live with each other, how we can be able to enjoy each other, how we can be able to be a blessing. Now, when we go out of that order, when we go out of God's order, now we have all these other societal ills and challenges to deal with. So if we then are going to approach education using the Bible, it's not a bubble for me. In fact, some people have argued that it is isolation. We believe that it's not isolation, but it is insulation. And there's a very big difference, all right? When you insulate, you're not isolating. You are understanding that what I have here is very valuable and it needs to be protected so that it's channeled productively. So that is only it's used, the current flowing in that wire is useful for you to do your cooking, it's useful for you to do your ironing. It will do all those things. But for that to happen, you must channel that current in a way that it is insulated. it does not cause a danger to other things surrounding it. So when we bring up children in this, what we call through insulation, where we guide them with values that when they form their lives based on those values, they are then now going to be very useful in society. If you look at Proverbs 22 verse 6, it's talked about train up a child in the way he should go, so that when he is old, and that he refers to both he or she, they will not depart from it. And that's the essence for me, that then in that case, then we are saying that the values that we use to train up the children do not make them misfits, but in other words, make them better citizens. If you're talking about in the case of a country, it makes them better employees when they're going to go to work, you know? And that's like now in Kenya, I think one of the things we grapple with is that we say we are 80% Christian. But when you look at our lifestyle, it is challenging. If we just live the Christian life, just tell me, if we just live the Christian life very well, Kenya would be heaven on earth. Yeah? So that is really the essence for me. So I would just say that it is the essence when we use biblical values to train up children. We are not raising misfits, but instead we are producing very beautiful citizens for the nation, and most importantly for God, because that's what God desires. In Malachi, he talks about why did he put two together? Because he was looking for a godly offspring, godly seed.
Thank you for that. The next question is, how do you balance academic excellence with spiritual growth?
Wow. No, that's very interesting. Last night, I was talking with the high school students at the school, and they asked me that question. So I already have, like, what do you call it, a leakage of this exam. But it's not difficult for me. I having been a student, even though it was many years ago, and also being a Christian and being very active in other responsibilities, I think the important thing that we need to emphasize for students or for anyone is a question of having a balance in life in terms of knowing how to allocate the time that God has given us so that we use it well. God has given us 24 hours in a day. Yeah. If we're a student, the bulk of that time is for studies. But we also can't study 24/7. It would be very difficult for you, even for your mind. It's not even healthy. All right. So you'll need time for other things. So what are those other things? Now we say as believers, the most important thing is our walk with God. So that becomes priority. So we give it time, but we cannot also give it all the time. So we can't be talking about, we are heaven good, but no earthly use. So we'll just start the morning, we'll pray the whole day, we'll go do crusade, that is not the approach. So we encourage the students to have this balance where they have their time and they can be able to schedule and say, okay, fine, I need to start I start with quiet time every morning. If I have 30 minutes quiet time, that leaves me still with 23 hours and a half, right? Then I have my timetable, I have my classwork, I have my time with teachers. I also have my personal time to do my own personal study, right? Then we'll have times when we can also do outreaches. We have times we can develop our skills and our giftings, as Violet shared earlier on. So that's also you put it in. Maybe I'm into music, maybe I'm into sports, maybe I'm into something else, art. So I can also create time for that so that I can also grow those skills. So ideally, it does not collide or it does not conflict. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We are going to move to the next part where we're going to focus on parent-focused questions. Mrs. Muhol will lead that part. And the first question is, what should be a parent's main driving force or motivating factor for their child's education?
It's interesting because I'm a parent. So it's a good question. And, can I have parents of 3 children? One is 31. The second one is 23. And the last one is 19. He's so excited. He has just graduated from high school and he's on going to college. And this was a question we asked ourselves before we got our firstborn son. what kind of education do we want this child to have? I'm a teacher, and I was a secondary school teacher at Book Academy in Mumias, and Enoch worked there as well. He was an accountant with Mumias Sugar. And as a teacher of high school students, one of the things I noticed, I'm just drawing the background from what would drive me as a parent. What should I really be looking for? I think as we thought about the education we wanted to give our children, because it is that thought that changed us completely. That is the thought that drove us to want to homeschool and drove us to want to start the idea of having Christian education within student learning. And so when we thought about the children that are in the secondary school where I was in, these are very families that are well off and everything. One of the things we noticed was a lot of emptiness in the children and a lack of like purpose or vision. It's like you just go and you finish high school and you're moving on. And how did we know this? Many times when you're a teacher and you are not in class, we realize the students will just make noise, or they would always do things that you as teachers would keep wondering, but isn't anybody working with these children to mold them in life, and their parents with them? And we realized very few parents spend time with their children. We have engaged house helps and maybe other people to help us, caregivers or whatever we want to do. And that's why the children could be. So what did we want ourselves? At that time, we were looking at, if we don't change how our child, if we don't change how we are doing things, when we get children, because we hadn't yet gotten the first child yet, when this child comes, they will then fall into this factory that is already made, and they will just look like this. They will look like, so where are they going? Why aren't they being themselves? Why aren't they believing in themselves? Why aren't they doing the best for themselves? And we wanted something different. And therefore, that's why we chose a totally different journey from what everyone else was doing. And that was our first introduction to moving away from just the normal Kenyan system of doing things to doing what we do. At that time, the first thing that we ever got involved in was accelerated Christian education. And since then, we've grown in many other ways that education can be done. But what was motivating us? The thing is that we believed that in each child, there is their best. And if their best is there, which God has already put in it, then we have a responsibility as parents to be able to nurture that so that these children believe that God exists and that they're created in his image and that they were supposed to be the very best in the world in terms of witnesses for God, ambassadors for God, the salt for God, the light for God. So whatever they are doing, is it at work? When I say these things, I'm not saying them religiously. It means that when I'm at work, people can see that if they want something, there's wisdom that comes through me when I speak. When they're looking for how do they solve this problem, they can see some insight that I give that they can draw from. So we wanted to raise a child who can be able to be that kind of person. And therefore, I feel like as a parent, one of the things that would motivate me or that I would encourage a parent to look for is how can who is in your child be developed? Look for that in education. Look for, God has already created your child with a purpose. Can I then align that with a school that can be able to bring that out for my child? Can I align that with the way I'm educating them so that my child becomes who they are supposed to be? The other thing, of course, that I would like to say is that every parent desires that their child achieves or succeeds. And so when you're looking for a place, we are looking for a place that every child would achieve and succeed. And like Enoch has mentioned before, and like we are doing through individualized education, we are saying every child is an achiever. Just give us an opportunity to get the best out of them. And so when you're looking for how your child should be educated, look for where can I get a place where who my child is will be brought out, and then they can be able to be who they need to be because they shouldn't be another person. And that's what hurts people, that we try to be other people and we are never ourselves. So those two things are the things that would drive me when I'm looking for a school, or drove me when I was looking for a school for my children many years back, and just changed my focus completely from continuing to remain in the pool of where everyone was going, to desiring to take a risk and ask, there must be more out here. What should I do to get it, and get it for my children? Yeah.
Mr. Mohol, would you like to chime in on that question as well? Thank you, Mrs.
Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot happening in the world, and unfortunately, a lot of it filters through education systems as well. The changing paradigms, the changing dynamics in terms of society and other things filters through also the education sector. So when you look at the material, the resources, the books and other, and right now with more access to what we call now information highway, where knowledge is available. Children can also get knowledge online. They can get knowledge from many sources. The ability to filter what is useful becomes very, very tricky. So parents have a bigger challenge in terms of being gatekeepers, if I may use that phrase, being gatekeepers for the well-being of their children in a rapidly changing world. So that in itself is a challenge. So you need then to be able to realize that I need to step up my vigilance. I need to step up how I'm going to navigate this process, because they're not in school for a very long time. But increasingly, many children of believers, and this is something that researchers confirmed, walk away, say, from their faith. By the time they are in college or they are going to college, they walk away from the faith. And part of the challenge, or part of the reason, is because of this infiltration we are talking about, this exposure. And some people probably don't mind it. Some people say, you know what, it's okay, let us just get that exposure, let them have as much as possible. But let me ask this question. If you are cooking food, and a fly is hovering around, sorry to use a very ugly illustration, I don't think you'll be so happy to say, let the fly just swim in that soup. It will make the soup more wonderful. I just will enjoy it. I don't think there's any person who would do that. You'll make sure, in fact, if actually a fly entered, sometimes you'll actually throw the whole thing away. Now, imagine if that is the life of a child. You can't afford to throw it away. You can't. And so that's why for me, I'm saying as parents, the call to be more vigilant is greater now than even before. The need for us to be able to safeguard, to be gatekeepers, so that what our children are going through, what our children are learning, is anchored on biblical truth and biblical values. That's a responsibility that we have, because we'll stand before God and give an account one day.
Thank you for that. The next question is, how can parents tell if traditional school is not working for their child?
Maybe we have looked a little bit about we have looked a little bit on traditional schooling. Maybe just to reemphasize, first, let's describe what traditional schooling would be looking like. It means I'm in a classroom, we have desks, or desks we sit on, and they are arranged in rows so that the children are sitting this way, and then there is a blackboard or whatever board that there is, where the teacher is the one who is teaching. Now, in this setup, what happens is that in this traditional setup, the teacher then has topics that they will be teaching, and so they choose to go, they find out information about it. Most of the time, there's a syllabus to cover. So you are limited to the syllabus and you want to cover as much of it because at the end of it all, the students will be sitting an exam. That is in the normal Kenyan setup. So what happens is that the teacher comes, they talk. Occasionally, they will ask the students questions, the student will answer. And so it is so strongly teacher-centered. And that's why you see teachers celebrate when students pass exams. You feel so good because it means you used very good methods to get them to pass. That's what you're trying to say, that it was me who made them pass. On the other hand, when education is student-centered, it means that you are giving the student an opportunity to use their mind, their intellectual mind, in order to produce knowledge as well. It's interesting. I've been having an opportunity to work with the 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, even as I'm doing my PhD currently, just being able to go into the field and watching how children learn. You will be amazed at how much children know. And that as long as you give them the right kind of environment, I've been amazed how they can write stories. And sometimes we think writing stories means that they are writing clearly without spelling mistakes and everything. No, writing a story just would be you're giving me an opportunity if I want to draw, if I want to write, whatever I want to do, but I'm moving from one end to another of that story. So what are you doing to this child? You are provoking their thinking skills. You are allowing them to see, I want to formulate a story. What should go into it? How should I begin and how should I end? Who are the people going to be there? There is a lot going on. And so you're developing this child to be able to be someone who can move forward from one end of doing something to the other end of doing the same thing, so that they are producing knowledge. They are managing themselves in being able to be participants. I'm a teacher. And many times as teachers, we think we know so much and children should just be listening to us. But children have a lot of information, in fact, like right now. So when I'm thinking about student-centered education, vis-a-vis traditional education, I'm looking at allowing the child to be a participant with you in the learning process. Then allowing the child to work with others in order also to know things. They are not just for themselves. And so the learning is not, we used to do group work. So it's not that thing of, you guys can go into and do group work. No. Where learning and the setup, even in the classroom, is no longer that one of facing the teacher at the front, but you have children sitting in around tables, where they are facing each other because they'll be working together even as they learn. And you as the teacher, you're going towards them to be able to guide that process so that you become more a facilitator, not the one with all knowledge. So that's the difference with between traditional education and student-centered education, or education that allows the student to participate, vis-a-vis the one where content is what is important, completing syllabus is what is important, passing of exams is what is important. That's what we are trying to move away from. And we are trying to say there are many ways, better ways of learning than just for me to be passive, but to be an active participant in that learning process. So that's how I would look at that question, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Muhol. I'd like to welcome Anne. Thank you for joining, and also read one comment from Florence, who has said thank you for the information. I just want to remind the audience, you can continue sharing your comments and questions on the chat, and we'll answer them after the session, this session. Also, I think this question is related to what we've just discussed. How does individualized education help learners to thrive?
Yeah, and I think, like you've said, that's what we've been talking about. But when we think about thriving, maybe because we've said so much of what they already need to have, let's look at now the outcome. What are we looking at? And Enoch has alluded to that. We are looking at a student who can go into society and be able to succeed. That when you take them and place them anywhere, they should be able to work in any setting. Okay, so this is a student who's come to my school. They are learning. they should be able to grow socially, emotionally, spiritually, morally, in such a way that if, let me say, they are placed to go and work in a refugee camp in Northeastern, they should comfortably fit and work because they know their purpose in life is greater than the heat or the lack of the city life there. They know so much, so they can be able to operate in any place. Or many times I hear us complain about many things in our country. Oh, there's so much to talk about our country and ourselves. But how much more would it have been if probably we had more problem solvers, even as leaders, and practical ones? And so you want to nurture children so that as they move into the job market, they become these people that learn to solve problems. We have companies that run so well. We have places that run so well because there are people who go in there and they use their minds and their skills in order to be better workers or work in that company and be able to produce what is required. So for me, a student who is thriving is the one that when they go into a company, they can be able to actually not only just be a team player, but be among the people that are helping the company to grow or making the company fruitful or being able to be an influence, a positive influence wherever they are. When I look at a student that is thriving, I see this student that like we have talked about confidence, but even in their speaking, they can be able to represent what they are saying clearly so that it helps another person. And it not only helps that person, but whoever it is that has listened to them can be able to say, oh, okay, this person has actually been able to contribute positively to something. But that is a training they receive, a training where you are helped to learn to express yourself. But also when you express yourself, have you done enough research? Have you thought about the things that you need to do? Have you thought about the topic that you want to have you? So they are not just speaking anything. They have also done due process by the time they are talking, and therefore they're like the salt or the light that is needed at that time. They actually, whatever they are saying is so meaningful for people that they receive the reward of, oh wow, thank you for what you have just said. So for me, individualized learning helps the student to be able to know how to just fit wherever they will be, but also to be fruitful wherever they are, and to be an influence so positively that that impact can be felt. In fact, as I talk, I'm just reminded of being a Daniel. It didn't matter where you are. Wherever you go, you are just a success. You are spiritually charged, but you also have the skills. You know, these Israelite children, one didn't just have God, they also had the skills because of how they were raised. They were raised to think, they were raised to know, oh, I can ask God and then He can guide me. You know, I can be the Noah of the time, I can be the Esther of the time, and therefore helping children to thrive in whichever places they are in is critical to individualized education, because then the very best of who they are also is seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's every parent's dream when their child is able to adapt to life. Yeah, so the next question is how involved should parents be in online learning? This is in terms of the modern day world. There are quite a number of parents who prefer to teach their children to be taught from home. So how do we look at that, and uh, how much should parents be involved in their kids' online learning?
Oh yeah. One of the benefits of online learning, I have benefited from online learning myself. And maybe to give it as a story also, is that it enabled me to work and to do my course and gain my degree. I did my master's online and from a university of choice, you know, and therefore I still got a quality education online and graduated well at that time. But when we think about online, sometimes we fear our children's access to media because of the fact that we are thinking there's a lot of entertainment going on for them. They are in the wrong sites. People will find them. But as parents, one of the things then we can do is there are so many apps and many things that people have already developed that can help you to filter the things that your children gain access to. So that's one of the things that you can do. And then I'm also a trainer of a child. I believe parents are trainers of children. So from young, training your children to see the computer or any media that they are using as a tool to help build them. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with entertainment. But then how much entertainment and what is entertaining you? So that they don't see it like you don't want me to do anything else on that computer. No. It's that we want to be measured so that whatever we are doing should then be something that is going to be beneficial. So it's making the computer a learning tool. We do so much research on it. We do look at what people are saying. We have role models that we can only get sometimes that are online because we can't see them physically. We can only travel to some countries online because we can't go there. I travel to so many countries online, by the way. That's how I travel, because I used to think I can travel the world, but looking at the way things are, it's expensive. And so seeing the computer as something that you can help your child to know that it can be beneficial for them, and it is not just a tool for entertainment or for bad things. And therefore, you whenever they are on the computer, they are fearing that you will come and snatch the computer from them. But the other thing is that online learning requires a lot of discipline. So if you want to use it for your child, then as a parent, you just remain as involved. You know the way they come home and you ask them for their homework? Oh, so do you have homework today? It's the same thing with online learning. Have you done your assignments? Have you handed them in? For us at Oaks Academy, we use online learning as well. It is one of our options. And we have created classrooms. So you can get into your child's classroom, see how they are doing. By the way, another way a parent can be so involved is being in touch with the teachers that teach this child, be in touch with the school and finding out, so what's going on with my child? How are they doing? Is there any way I can help? So being a present parent is very important when we are thinking about online learning. So that as you are involved in it, the child can see it doesn't matter whether I'm doing things physically. Even if I'm here at home, my parent is still as involved as they should be. We are not saying that the parent now should be there completely the whole day with the child. We're just saying that the way they go to school and come back, then you can also get involved in their lives that way. The way you talk to them about life issues, guide them concerning computers and how to use them so that it benefits them. And it's a process. It's not something you say once. You will sometimes find them making mistakes by getting into places you don't want. And that's why you have the filters that you need so that you can easily catch or you can easily sense that something is wrong. Yeah, so I think, yeah, for me, that's what I can think about when I think of online learning. But I find that online learning is so critical. In fact, you're reminding me of we have had several students. They may not be in in Nairobi. They have been in Nyeri. They were in Uganda. We have had a student who has been in Spain. There was a student who was in Spain and in Dubai, and they were able to learn. Why were they able to learn? It's because of being online. We were still providing a quality education that they could access, but they were in Spain because they were footballers, so they were in the academies there. They were in Dubai because of football. They were in Nyeri because they were looking for a quality education at a Christian school that Oaks could be able to provide, and they didn't need to come physically for that to happen. So those are some of the things that could also help. Your child could be somebody who is very gifted in many ways. It doesn't have to stop. School can also follow you. That's a whole discussion for another day, but that's the benefit of online learning, and that it can still work and the child can still excel and parents can still remain in charge of the child's learning if they're involved. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think we'll move to the last session about Oaks Excellence Academy, and that I'll give to Mr. Mohol, who is the founder, of course, with Mrs. Mohol, but he'll share why was Oaks Excellence founded and what makes Oaks different from other schools.
Sorry, my dear, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm just saying I'll try to be brief. We founded Oaks Excellence Academy I think, in the midst of the COVID challenge. And at that particular moment in time, as Violet mentioned earlier on, we were responsible for ACE as a curriculum. So really, we were not in charge. We didn't have a school. Okay, we had one school which we had founded with the Trinity Fellowship called Faith Ventures, but we had also stepped out of a lot of day-to-day responsibility as far as that is concerned. And we were focused more on the core role of being the ACE representatives. But in that 2020, certain developments and certain directions we clearly had from God meant that we had to create an alternative for students that were caught up in some changes that were happening with regard to access to higher education. So that is how actually Oaks came about, because a large constituency of our clients who are the homeschoolers really was stranded in a way. And so we had to pray, and the Lord gave us Isaiah, I think 43, that he was doing something new, verse 19, he was doing something new. But he had also given us Isaiah 61 before, Isaiah 61 verse 3, where he talks about that our children were going to be oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. So those two, I would say, and many others, informed a belief that it was time for us to launch and start a school. Now, Oaks Excellence Academy is a Christian school. It's an international school. And we really are unapologetically Christian. The reason I say that is because if you take Christ out of Oaks Academy, then it's just like any other ordinary school. Then we would say we don't need to be there because there are enough schools for that particular reason. But to have a school where we see things from the way God wants them to be seen and to be unapologetic about it, you know, to be a school where the children can come or can be part of it, whether they are physically in the school or they are online, but they know for sure that they are loved. They know for sure that God loves them. They know for sure that they are valued. They know that God values them. And they know for sure that the giftings and talents that they have is for a reason. It's not just nothing. And that the environment is created for them to develop those skills and develop those giftings. And finally, so that they can also be able to excel. When you see the word excellence, Oaks Excellence Academy, is because we value that importantly, that they need to be able to excel. They need to be able to achieve their very best. Now, that very best is measured by individual. It's not measured in a group. So every child will set their goals, will set their
talking to?
And the desire is somebody's, I think, having their microphone on. The desire is to ensure that the child grows in all what we call 4 dimensions, right? We use several approaches. One of them we use is called MEND, where we do mentoring. Then we do equipping in terms of the skills, all right? Then we do nurturing. Nurturing is really basically where you relate with this child as a human being, as a person that's of value. You guide them through the challenges of life. You know, we approach in such a way that we don't look at them as perfect people. They can make mistakes. That is okay. You know, we will give second chances. We'll be able to guide you to walk and to achieve what God wants for you. That's really nurturing. And then the final one is discipleship. Discipleship, now we anchor it on our relationship with God, our knowledge of God's word. How do we value God's word? How do we put God's word in our lives? How do we put God's word in our daily experiences? You know, I was just having like I told you, I was having a meeting with the high schoolers this morning, if I may call it this morning for the team in Kenya. Yeah. And, I was so excited to hear some of them saying, them they want to be preaching during the chapel, they want to be leading in music. And I'm just hearing that from young people. And I'm saying, wow, that is so awesome to hear. It's not like we are pushing them, it's not like we are forcing them, but you see, they have come to an environment that encourages them to walk with God and not be afraid about it. But at the same time, there are even those of them that are doing exams, and you can see they're really, I'm asking them, so how was your paper yesterday? Oh, it was good. When somebody has come from doing an exam and you ask them, how was your paper? And they're saying it's good. That's encouraging. And we have seen our children even consistently post very good results in the exams. So that is in a nutshell is what Oaks Academy is all about. A school where this holistic approach in the way we approach this whole thing of raising up a child, raising up an individual, because for us, you bring to us a student. But for us, we see a mother, we see a father, we see an employee, we see that's what we see in that even that little 5-year-old. I was talking with the students yesterday. I was giving them the example of one of the students that was, I can remember she got to school when she was probably 5 years. Like we have said earlier on, we have been in this for a long time. And she has finished her master's. She was getting married in January. I was privileged to be at that wedding. And just looking at that journey, when I'm remembering this little girl that was in preschool, now she has done a master's. Now she's somebody's wife. And you can tell, she's so focused. She has a calling to work with children. And that for me is what this is all about. So in Oaks, we're not just looking at the student that you have enrolled with us. We are looking at that student in terms of what their life beyond finishing school will look like. So we see a father, we see a mother, we see an employee, we see an entrepreneur, we see a government worker, we see, so many things. The possibilities are just so huge. And to be able to see that happen in your lifetime, I think for Violet and I is such a privilege and honor. Just having watched God transforming lives and changing lives and seeing them now, starting with our own children. We are talking about our own son who is 31 years. And, looking at his life of 31 years and seeing who he is today, I don't know what else a parent would ask for. We are good friends. We talk, we laugh, we challenge each other. He's excelling in his field in IT. That is just a blessing, even our other girl and our other son. So we don't just talk about this to parents, we talk about it from our own practical also experiences. But that's in a nutshell what is Oaks Academy.
Thank you, Mr. Mohol. And now to our final question. So someone may wonder, why does Oaks have IGCSE, ACE, GED, CBE, all these options? What does that mean? And why does Oaks offer multiple pathways for the students they enroll?
I think one of the things that is important to mention is that if you look at the global trends, and schools are going to be forced to change their approach to be able to provide what we call hybrid or a multi. And the example I like to give is this, that when you look at education, education is supposed to be where you bring in a student, and we want to be able to prepare these students for whichever pathway God has for them, which at the time, maybe when they are joining or at the entry point, that may not be very clear. But in the process of being in this ecosystem we call education, we should be able to identify and then help that child accordingly. Now, when you look at those terminologies you're mentioning, IGSC, Pearson, CBE, GED, people confuse a lot of these things. But those are essentially what we call pathways for getting certifications when you finish your school. That's what they are, right? So they work differently for different reasons. So we need to be able, as educational experts, we need to be able to know what best suits a child so that we can prepare them effectively for the path that will be able to meet their need and their desires. I like giving the example of a mechanic and somebody with a car. So you have a car, you take it to the mechanic. Now, what is your goal? Your goal is to have a functioning car. Your goal is to have a car that will give you sound performance on the road, that is not having mechanical issues. That's what you want. In other words, you want a whole car, right? Now, when you take that car to the mechanic should be able to know what is the problem with your car, whether it is a gearbox issue, whether it is and what we call a fuel issue, what we call a injection issue, whether it will be anything else. The mechanic should be able to diagnose the problem, then be able to deal with that problem and sort it out, so that when your car leaves, your car is functioning. Now, when a child comes to the school, we should be able to know what are the child's learning styles. What are the child's goals? What does the child want to become in life? And because the child is not alone, the child is coming from a background where there are parents involved, and parents are actually investing in this life. They are putting resources into this life, and they want to be able to put resources so that those resources are going to give the best result for the needs of the child. And you don't want to do that and then count your loss and say, oh, I wasted. Because education is costly. So the different pathways we have at Oaks Academy is to allow us to have that flexibility and be able to help the children just get the pathway. So IG, for instance, is the British curriculum that is examined by either Cambridge or by Pearson. So you can choose which of those examination bodies that you want to go to examine you. But they are not the curriculum. They're just what we call, they are examination bodies. The body, the curriculum itself is the British curriculum. Now, CBE, we know, is a Kenyan system. And sometimes I tell people, education is confused us a lot. We talk about, we have changed curriculum, now we are on this, and then sometimes parents are so confused. And ours is to make the parent be at ease. Don't be so overwhelmed. In fact, if you really look at it, CBE is not an animal that people fear. Even 844 wasn't really an animal as we've made them to be to look like. Yeah, because people still have come out of those systems and they are good people. Now, what we want to be able to do is to reassure parents that whether you are going to do CBE, whether you're going to do British, or whether you're going to do the American, which is either GED or ACE, you know, the body of knowledge doesn't change much. If you're going to learn English, in all of these approaches, a verb will still be a verb, it will not change. A noun will still be a noun, it will not change. If you're going to learn about maths, the area of a triangle will still remain the area of a triangle. So if you are required to know that, you still have to know it in any of these things. And if you have to do an exam, you have to do an exam for it. That's how I want to make it as simple. I know it's not that easy. But now when it comes to the pathways, then we are able to guide you appropriately. This pathway, this is the route we'll take. This pathway, this is the route we'll take with your child. And it should be easier for your child to find a pathway that suits them best. Sometimes, for instance, if you look at like the ACE, sometimes some children, it slows them down. Some children allow them to work very fast. So again, you see every child will perform differently in a different environment. Okay.
Maybe Nancy, I can just give examples of how these different curriculums have benefited different students that we have had. Now, let me assume a parent would want, okay, what parent would I advise to take, like, for example, or a child would take like a GED? This is an American equation of, let me call it testing. I'm going to use an example of parents who have had children that probably were progressing through school and they are mature. Now, they get to, by the time they are doing their O-level, maybe they are in their 20s or even, yeah, they're just mature students. And they're struggling because other students have gone to campus who are their friends and they're wondering, what about me? They are also looking at themselves as, I would really love to still do my best, but I'm feeling like I'm stuck. So like Enoch is saying, we then have an exit route that is suitable for this mature student who still wants to finish well and still go on with their life. So then you would advise, why don't you take the GED, because it will still give you a high school equivalent of a high school diploma of America, that it can be equated if you want to remain in Kenya, or you can use it if you want to then go to other universities, because a GED is an international thing. It is recognized as, depending on which country you go to, and they will tell you how to be able to get into their system using it. And so that is one way we've seen, so that no child should ever remain stranded because of not being unable to complete. Or you would have a child that is more inclined to CBE, and it's just a parent's choice, and there is nothing wrong with that. Or it could be that they feel like they would always want to do schooling here in Kenya, and so you work with them. So like Enoch has said, you work with the pathway that is best suited. But what I wanted maybe to also emphasize is that sometimes, because of how we were nurtured before, the exit was so important to us. We should see pathways as just direction and the process of where will my child go. So maybe I should be thinking, where do I want my child to go? Are they most likely to study in a Kenyan university, or would I want them to go abroad? Or, so that you're thinking that way and then selecting which way you want to go. As a school, it shouldn't be difficult to provide a child with whichever pathway they want to use, because it's just a matter of aligning the curriculum to that pathway. And you have teachers already. So we don't find it, we find that it gives the flexibility of choice, even in terms of what I want to stay with, but then be in an environment that I'm comfortable with, as Oaks Excellence Academy then provides you with. Yeah.
Maybe the other thing, just to briefly add, I know our time is running short, is that we need to also differentiate between what we call the tools and then the assignment. And that's a very important, I think, point for me. For some time, I think there's been a blurred line in terms of we have taken certain maybe tools or certain curricula to be equated to the assignment. When you talk about Christian education, we are talking about integrating biblical values in the education process, whatever it is that we are dealing with, whether we are teaching using the Cambridge system or we are teaching using the CBE, using the ACE, we focus on, we are using biblical values and biblical principles. But now those tools that we use of themselves are not the assignment, right? So for instance, I can still be able to have a school, a Christian school, and even do CBE, and I can be very effective. I can be very, very efficient, right? And I think that's very important for us to highlight here, that we need to separate the tool. The tool is for you to do the assignment. Like I can tell you cut the grass. That's the assignment, to cut the grass. Now, if you focus so much on the tool, you'll be thinking about that the slasher is the only thing to cut the grass, because that's what I've known. So you'll be stuck there. But some people will be using a lawnmower and you are stuck on a slasher. So the idea is to know that I can use the tools depending on what I have, what I can afford, but also depending on the needs that are at best. But the assignment is to cut the grass, all right? I remember in high school, we used to be given a plot when we joined Form 1, and we had to cut that grass with a slasher. There's no other option. And every Saturday, they'll inspect your plot and give your house mark. It was a very interesting thing that they used to have as a tradition in my high school. Yeah, but it's important to separate the tool and the assignment.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that is the end of our session for discussions. And I just want to say thank you to the panelists who have really shared important information for if a parent wants to make a decision on what or the education their child should undertake. So I think right now we'll move to the Q&A and comment section. Thank you for everyone who has shared a question. We have Florence who says thank you for the information and asks, what is your thought on parental role, gender stereotyping, technological divide, social and cultural barriers on this type of learning? So I think both Mr. Mohol and Mrs. Mohol can answer that question.
Maybe Nancy, if you allow, if Lawrence is still here, I think a lot of this you have dealt with in the body of the discussion. She could highlight for us an aspect of that you still want us to give more details on, so that we are more specific. Because I think it's a very loaded question, and some of that we have captured. I don't know whether Florence is there and she can just bring out now a part that she still wants us to attend to, then we can narrow it on that one.
Yeah, Florence, you can just unmute. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given me. I think I typed the question before the end of all the explanation. There are some that have already been answered, but I just want to congratulate you for taking the bold step of having this type of education in our system. And I want to say that I was interested in the webinar because I'm doing a research on ICT integration in teaching and learning. So the last part that you have just highlighted, I just hope that maybe in OX, there is a balance between CBE and IGSE, because I've seen most of the schools belittling CBE and making IGSE look like a super tool the way you've used. And even the meals are different. CBE and IGSE, they feed on different menus. But I just want to
That's sad. That is sad. How do meals have to do with curriculum, my sister? That is very sad. I'm just surprised. Anyway, yeah. But I hear you. That's so sad.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. So that is what makes some parents have a notion that IGSE is a superior model than CBE. But you see, the way you explained, it is more of CBE because CBE is more of nurturing a learner's potential, as well as using the skills that you've said, the values that you've said. So making a level ground for our learners in Kenya is so good. So the only part that I wish you to highlight is the technological divide. There's a child who might be wishing, maybe I want to join that type of learning. But the socioeconomic status maybe of the family does not allow, because they might not be having electricity as well as the gadgets. This is from experience because I'm also doing it online. Sometimes it is hectic when people start crying, power is almost off. So how do you deal with technological balance for those ones who are doing online and maybe they're in a place where they are struggling to get the power?
All right, thank you, Florence. I think I'll attempt to respond, and maybe Violet can also chip in. Kenya is a very unequal society. We all know that, in terms of social status, in terms of economic well-being. You know, we have in Nairobi, for instance, you have the people who live in the slums. If you look at their life on a day-to-day basis, it's really pathetic. In the same country, we have people who go to the supermarket to spend 10,000 on food for cat and dog, and it's okay for them. So it's a very unequal society. But that inequality is also so bad when it comes to education. So bad. Now, there's something that was trending, I think, this week. The cabinet secretary, I think, for energy, David Chirchir, has upgraded his former primary school to something magnificent, something. I know people are congratulating, but me, I stopped and said, you know what, wait a minute. What about the neighboring school next to that school? How are they feeling? You know, just like what you have said, where you have a school and you're having different menu for children because some are doing IG. It's not moral in my view. It's not right. But the truth is that is our situation. And it is difficult to give a straight answer and say that this is a solution. We only want to say that there are options that are available, and God helping each family, they can be able to find the best option for them, even if that may not be Oaks Academy. Because the other thing is that education is very expensive. I agree. And you cannot offer quality and offer it cheap. It's just not possible. So what we try to do at Oaks Academy, we have said that education shouldn't be so expensive as to be inaccessible. Now, we know the British system is basically the British public education system, just like our CBE. It's like you going to Britain and setting up a school and saying you're going to offer CBE, the Kenyan program, and you want to attract enrollment. The truth is you won't, isn't it? But you see now, when they come out here, they can be able to provide it, and it's okay. But what we have experienced with Violet, even having traveled a lot, and like now when we're in the US here, is that we sometimes underplay what we have and the value of what we have ourselves. We are our greatest enemies. Our CBE curriculum is a very good tool, and we can be able to promote it and use it very well. And that's what we want to do in our folks. But even now, when we offer the CBE, the British curriculum, we are saying, for instance, why should you charge $1 million for this program, honestly? You know, schools have charged that, but what are they actually offering? Yeah, if you look at it, maybe now, like you're saying, they give better food than the other. Now, if I want to give good food, why don't I just I want to offer this lunch. If you can afford 3 meals, you pay this. If you can afford 1, pay this. That's different, but it shouldn't have anything to do with their curriculum. See what I mean? So when it comes to curriculum, we are saying, for instance, how can we make it affordable without compromising on quality? So when you look at our fees is tailored along those lines, so that we are saying that we want to try as much as possible to make it as affordable as we can, but not compromising on the quality of what we need. So that the quality of learning you'll get at Oaks should be the same quality you can get even at Rayburn or at whichever any other school. But you'll find that the cost will be not even comparable. But the quality should be nearly equal. Now, if we can do that in education, we can be able to start looking at what are the barriers to education? What are the things that make the poor not access education? And constantly review those areas. We'll be breaking these barriers, whether they're technological, because like for technological, if children can come to a school and you can access all the computers there, that's fine. If we can have like the government improving and creating community centers where the children can have access to computers and library, that will enhance access, particularly for the lower income areas. But sometimes some of those things are not within our capacity to do. We can only do what is in our hands to do at a school level. But I agree with you, those are real challenges, and I'm sure even as you do your research, maybe you'll find more areas that are very, very open to that, and maybe trust God to give us solutions to some of these things.
Mrs. Mohol, anything on that question?
I think Enoch has answered well, but I'm impressed by what you have said, Florence, and maybe one of these days we should just do a webinar on CBE or the Kenyan system of education. I think as Kenyans I don't know if it's because we were colonized, I don't know. We seem to have a nudge that thinks that are foreign are good, but also the fact that we don't have, and so we look to the foreign things. Many times the things that we have are made so difficult to access that you just get tired. Like, I think a lot of parents gave up on CBE, not because they didn't want it, but because there was a lot of confusion around it, a lot of politics. But really, as a system of education, it is just competency-based. And we are trying to build the competencies, and they are moving from having to assess a child through exams to assess a child with how competent you are in certain things. What are your milestones? So CBE is actually a good thing. It's just that it has a lot of politics around it. And therefore, it has made parents fear and come to something that is more stable. The IGCSE system has been stable. It hasn't, once they have it, it just, you don't find a lot of upheavals of it has changed the system, it has done this. No, no, no. Because education is dynamic, the curriculum design is the one that they keep updating, but in itself, it remains consistent as it is. So I think that's why a lot of people find consistency. But it is we are also very capitalistic in terms of as a nation. And so people like gaining things with where it's not due. They like giving mails to people who are doing different programs differently. I think another thing that Enoch has mentioned, which I find important when we look at access to education, maybe let me say that using technology, as Florence has asked, yes, it will remain a divide because not because it can't be accessible, but because of things that are beyond. You know, education is within a system. So I think for me, he has already mentioned the fact that if there is no power, it will be very difficult for a child to maintain having technology. If there is no internet access, I mean, when I go up country, you should know, I just struggle to make a call, a simple call, you know, to someone elsewhere. So you can imagine, so such things are just beyond what schools can offer. But believe me or you, when we speak with parents at home, like during COVID, I remember we were speaking with our relative. The child was just at home and all they were doing was taking care of cows and everything. And we're telling them, you know, by the way, you can choose that this is what you want them to do, but you can also challenge them. That's why I'm saying children have a lot in them. We just need to give them opportunities or challenge him to just delve into what he has and get to know it better, so that he's not just doing chores at home, because by the time he goes back to school, the others in private schools will have gone further and they will do the same exam. So you will need to think smart and help your child. So the best you can do is always to advise the parents, do what you can. But in terms of structure, the structure is so unequal that it's very difficult for education to function at an equal space in all places in the country. But it's also possible. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We have Magdalene Kimeria who says, this is a great discussion. Good job, Oaks Academy. And another question from Marceline who asks, what advice can you give to a parent who intends their child to compete at a global platform in terms of attaining quality education? From your experience, would be the best approach to education? What would be the best approach to education?
I want to answer that by letting Marceline know that even the Kenyan system is proven that you can compete globally. So just speaking from what Violet has said, if you have followed carefully, the Equity Bank has a program they call Wings to Fly. And they sponsor top performing students in Kenya to the Ivy League colleges. And when these children have gone to these colleges, they perform well. So even the Kenyan system on its own cannot stop you from performing well. The key to performing well in terms of whether globally or whatever it is a question of the potential. Once you be able to know the potential that this child has, and you work to bring the best of that potential in that child, the earlier you can start doing that, it's like if you can get the formula of how to get the best in this child and then keep that best in the child all through, then you have succeeded. So it doesn't matter which system they're going to use, whether they're going to do the British system, whether they're going to do the Kenyan system. For me, it doesn't matter which system massive. They can still do any of those, but you want to be able to ensure that are they performing at their best. Now, for you to do that, there's a deeper discussion to be able to then be able to sit with that child, to be able to create a pathway for this child, be working with this child, be helping this child. Now, when we talked about that mentored approach, mentoring, equipping, nurturing, and discipleship. You bring all that, and you are able to then to bring the best in this child. There are many brilliant students who fail exams. Yeah, there are many who fail exams, not because they're stupid, but because the environment is not suitable for them, for their best to come out. At Oaks, we want that best for the child to come out. So we work with the child and with this parent, hand in hand, to ensure that the best for this child comes out. So when you now go to specific areas of academic, you can then now to see what does that mean in terms of if this child needs to do math, so that math is one of the key subjects that will help them for their next career path. How do we ensure that their performance in math is optimized? Okay, how do you ensure that their performance in science is optimized, if that is something that's going to be important for their career path? And then you also start looking at it in terms of if that particular is not necessary. And we have had even discussion with children, tell them, why are you taking history? One, you're not enjoying it, it is dragging you down, you're getting bad grades, and then now you are discouraged. But if you look at your pathway, you can still achieve your pathway without history. Did you know that if you go to any of these options of curriculum, even with the CB, they give you so many subject choices. And sometimes people feel the more I do, the better. No, it's not always the more you do, the better. Because it comes down to what is going to help you achieve your potential. And then we narrow it to that. And a lot of the other things, you can still learn them without being to be put in an academic situation to be able to sit an exam. So you can still learn history without necessarily having to sit an exam for it. Okay? You can still learn some other subjects without necessarily have to sit an exam for it. So that's how I can advise that, yes, we will work with the parent, we'll work with the individual child so that their performance is optimized. And whether they now use the CB approach and get their KGSE or whatever the result they give at the end, they should still be able to compete globally. Kenyans have been known to compete globally, and they actually do so well. I can tell you that we are here in the US. The Kenyans are excelling. Nobody should ever cheat you. And they have just come from even 844, or they're coming from CBE, and they're excelling. They're going to excel.
Mrs. Muhol, do you have anything to add on that?
Okay, yeah, maybe just briefly. I'm looking at what Marceline is asking, and I can see that the way I would look at it, Marceline, is just what Enoch has said, but now allow your child to be in a school setup where they then are trained to be their best. Because whichever choices you make, like we've said, none of them is superior to the other. And when you're choosing a school for your child, don't focus so much just on curriculum. I want to look at the different students we have helped graduate. We had a student who went to New Zealand, and the New Zealand people had what they needed for her to do in order for her to attain admission there. And so, like Enoch has said, you work with the child knowing, oh, they actually want to go study in New Zealand, and this is what is required. And so you add it to what they need to do. We have students who have wanted to go to Strathmore, and you then look at what does Strathmore need so that I can be able to channel the energy of this child to excel in those particular subjects, for example, or the one that wanted to do medicine in Russia. I mean, people think many big things. But I have noticed now, having come and settled in a place like America, that what will sustain that child isn't just the academics that they have, because like Enoch has said, we are just as good. We can work hard. We have the resilience and we can exert ourselves. That one is no problem. The issue becomes is, have you prepared this child for life? Have you prepared them so that it was not just academics that they were doing? Now, that is the preparation that we add to, apart from the academics. Have you prepared them socially? Have you prepared them emotionally? How prepared are they spiritually? How prepared are they morally? So to me, those are the soft things that need to come alongside the hardware. Although for me, all those things are so important for a child to be able to excel. Because when they come to a place like this, now, like when I go to my classrooms, for example, our classrooms don't have the teacher being in front and they are talking, or it's not lecture form the way it would be in a normal university. I mean, we are the ones sometimes who need to present, we go research on the topics and then teach other people. In fact, the instructor only teaches like for about 10 minutes. And the rest of the others is what you're doing with the others, the knowledge you're gaining from others, activities that you're doing with others, the field trips you've taken outside, the things, so many things that come along. And it has taught us to see that those are the things that form people to be who they are. So if you put different children from different countries, you'll find, why is this one more confident than this other one? It's not so much because of the academics they have. It's because of other things that they learned that they can be able to present for themselves, the confidence they have that is important. So for me, it would just be, where do you place your child so that they can learn they can be equipped in all competencies? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And even as we wind up, we have one more comment from Liz who says, having worked in a Christian SE, IGCSE, and CBE school for a long time, I agree that putting God first, marrying biblical values with education in all the curriculums is the best for students. It's so amazing and truly helps children to grow up holistically. Thank you for this session. Yeah, and with that, I'd like to ask the panelists if they have any other last thoughts for us, and then we can close.
Let me go first. First, I want to thank all of you for coming. Our heart is for children, and that as parents or as educators, we have responsibility over them while they are in the process of being children or being students. And the decisions we make about their learning is so critical. When we make decisions about our children, let's seek God to first of all guide us, but let's also make decisions based on what is contemporary, where we have a more student-focused kind way of learning, rather than taking your child to be just in a crowd like everyone else, but also putting them in an environment where you know that they will grow. Again, I usually call it the SAMS model. They'll grow spiritually, they'll grow morally, they will grow academically, they will grow spiritually. They will be so well balanced in life. So education or learning is not just limited to academics. There is much more that goes into it to form the kind of person that you would want children to be. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you also. Yeah, it's good to hear Liz and to see you. Liz, thank you so much. It's been I think these are someone we have walked a long journey with. I'm so glad that you're still on. Yes, thank you. And everybody else who was able to make it for the seminar, we thank you. I just want to also mention the fact that at the heart of what we are doing is bring about education. Using education as a tool for transformation. So we really believe in that. We believe that when we inculcate values, in the children, we are going to raise another generation, a new generation of citizens that are going to lift our country to greater level. So our goal is to make Oaks Academy the Christian school of choice, and to promise that we'll train those children for transformation and they will be equipped for life. As part of this, we also believe so much in homegrown solutions. So we have already started the journey. We currently have already developed materials for PP1 and PP2 that are compliant with CBE. And the idea for us is so that we can be able to have context that is relevant for our children and that also promotes our national values, but more importantly, are Bible-centered. And we are really, really excited at what God has for us. We have the school at next to Two Rivers Mall in a very serene, quiet environment. It's spacious enough. We have very wonderful things that are going on there. And any parent who chooses to enroll with us, you will not regret it. Thank you, and God bless all of you. We actually have enrollments open, even if you want to transfer your children this term. Just, I think their contacts, Nancy will put again back, and you can be able to use those, and you can be able to talk with us.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who has attended today. Thank you to our panelists. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Oaks Excellence is open to you taking a tour of the school. You can contact us by visiting our website, that is www.oaksacademy.co.ke, or email us at admin@oaksacademy.co.ke, or call us on 0725 277-943, and we're also open to any consultations. Yeah, you are free to just walk in and let us know how we can assist you. Yeah, so have a lovely evening, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to repeat the contacts again. For the call, it's 0725 277. I'll add it on the chat. So I've added our contact. You can call us, of course, in working hours. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from all of you.